I'm talking about is like movies or TV shows, like live action shit.
Yeah.
Or even like books or whatever that could be made into an anime. Possibly even made better if they were anime.
Oh, God. That's like everything. All right. So, no, like.
Everything's better with anime.
I've been listening to the Joe Ledger series audiobooks.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's like, you know, kind of like spy thriller kind of shit, but it's like. They're
but
like
with Cthulhu somehow
yeah,
and zombies.
There's eldritch horrors and all kinds of other just wild shit. And I don't know, I really fucking like it. And even though it's a whole lot of kind of espionage-ish, you know, kind of stuff, some of the more supernatural elements I think would be a lot better animated. Even some of the action I think would be better animated.
I can see that. Okay, that's fair. That's
Joe
a good
Ledger
option.
and Mr. Church, they would totally be perfect anime characters.
See, the first thing that popped into my mind was like fucking The Fifth Element or something.
Oh my God, I would watch that. I would watch the shit out of a Fifth Element.
I
anime.
loved that movie when I was younger. I still really love that movie, even though it's kind of tainted now that I found out that Luc Besson is a fucking creep.
Oh.
But I really like the world that it's set
Yeah.
in. And imagine what like an anime series set in that world would be like.
I would watch the shit out of that.
Dude, I would buy all of the fucking merch. For real. Or fucking Dune. Nobody liked the fucking Dune movies. Just make that into an anime.
That's a damn shame. I thought those were really cool. Like, but you know what would be really fucking cool? Some of those old Star Wars stories, like Grand Admiral Thrawn.
Ooh.
The Thrawn trilogy in an anime would be fucking badass. I mean, holy shit, you got that fucking Joruus Cyberyoth dude and fucking all of the flashbacks to Jedi and weird shit and Force lightning everywhere and fucking...
Oh my God, I love Thrawn.
And there's going to be fucking Darth Vader making appearances, you know, and Grand Admiral Thrawn anime would be the shit. I think they
Or
need
just
to make
like
that
any
happen.
Star Wars anime. I mean, you see how well the animated Star Wars that they've already done had been doing before Disney fucking got a hold of it.
And the Jedi Academy trilogy, holy shit, with fucking Exar Kun.
Oh, yeah.
That would be a good fucking anime.
Dude, fucking Jedi Academy trilogy, that would be pretty cool, though. Although I thought they had, like... That wasn't canon, was it? Well, I guess it doesn't need to be canon
It was
anymore.
old school canon, but since Disney bought it, it is no longer canon.
Boo! God, just because they wanted fucking Space Snape in their goddamn movie, they had to get rid of Han and Leia's other kids.
Yeah, Han and Leia's other kids were better anyway. Oh, what they could really do is that whole Knights of the Old Republic thing. So, like, you know, with Darth Revan and Darth Malak. It was a great fucking video game, but it was like 20 years ago. So they could fucking totally recycle it into like a badass anime. Darth Revan in anime form.
Or they could make like a Spaceballs anime.
Holy shit. Holy shit. I would watch the fuck out of a Spaceballs anime. Oh
Let
my
Rick
God.
Moranis just voice himself.
Yeah.
Fuck it.
God damn it, Mel Brooks. Make it happen.
But what if there was an anime of Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas?
I would watch the fuck out of that. Holy shit, I would watch the fuck out of that.
Immensely improve it.
They could get like a whole animation department and feed them hallucinogens. And then while they're on hallucinogens, you know, read them all of those old fucking Hunter S. Thompson books. And then fucking have them be like, okay, now animate this shit.
Yes.
But
that
don't
would be
show
the
them.
Best way to do
but
it.
don't show them any of the other, you know, like, oh God, who's that artist that did all of the Fear and Loathing in
Ralph Steadman.
That's it. So anyway, we can't show any of the animators Ralph Steadman stuff because I really want to see what they would make if they had never experienced anything having to do with gonzo journalism or Hunter S. Thompson.
Just had no idea whatsoever.
While they're on that, and you give them acid.
And then give them a bunch of acid and mushrooms and
DMT
ecstasy and Quaaludes and fucking some paint to huff and poppers.
And a whole buttload of cocaine.
Yes, all of the cocaine. Don't tell the Japanese government about it. I don't know. We might have to do
we can fly them.
Japan.
Yeah, we'll fly out the animators. We'll tell them that they're going to like a fucking retreat because this is going to be a really intense animation project. We're going to take them out to a retreat.
Ocean.
Exactly,
just
an open ocean.
A fucking cruise liner or something.
Yeah, just give them all acid. Just get them all psychedelic out for like 2 weeks and then take them back to Japan and be like, all right, dudes, make a Fear and Loathing
No, just
anime.
make them do it on the fucking boat.
Yeah, but I mean, artists, artists are
yeah, you're right. It would probably just evolve into an orgy in no time. They'd never get any work done.
Sumo Punx, Sumo Punx, Sumo Punx, Sumo Punx. Sumo Punx, Sumo Punx, Sumo Punx, Sumo Punx. Sumo Punx, Sumo Punx, Sumo Punx, Sumo Punx. Sumo Punx, Sumo Punx, Sumo Punx, Sumo Punx.
This is Matt, and my favorite anime is The Way of the House Husband.
And this is Sabrina, and all my favorite animes involve tentacles.
And this is Sumo Punx.
Nuh-uh, you liar. Your
What?
favorite anime is Dragon Ball Z. You're basic as hell. Don't even try to pretend. Although Way of the House Husband is really fucking good.
It is,
really like
and
that.
you're right. I mean, now that I'm thinking about it, if I was to ever have to go back to just one anime throughout my entire life, it's probably
You're
fucking Dragon Ball
basically
Z.
Goku. I
Whatever. Not even.
try to mention some obscure thing like, oh no, I like this thing that nobody's ever heard of.
Oh, whatever.
No, I like some pretty obscure anime too. Like when I was younger, still even my favorite anime was Serial Experiments Lane.
Ooh.
I don't know. I like that like
Cerebral.
techno. Yeah.
See how
Kinda
you are?
stuff.
Pretentious.
Whatever. Are tentacles Okay, sometimes tentacles are pretentious. That's you
Maybe
got
go back to
got
your
me.
Tenchi Muyo.
Oh, whatever. Fucking ew. Don't even say the name of that anime in my presence. Although wasn't the same person who did Tenchi Muyo the one that did Slayers? I really did like Slayers.
See, I never watched Slayers, and Tenchi was just, I don't know, it came on after Dragon Ball Z, and I hated it.
That's when you turn the TV off.
I did, and I went outside and did bad kid stuff.
Did little hood rat shit.
I did.
Well, if you haven't figured it out by now, this episode is going to be all about anime and manga, specifically anime and manga featuring sumo. This will probably end up being a multi-part episode because there's actually a lot more out there than we thought there was.
And we're fucking nerds, and we're going to go on about it
Yeah,
at length.
I mean, we basically just do this shit because we're huge fucking weebs. But there was a couple of different things that we wanted to talk about before we got into it.
Like your first Dallas Sumo Club Keiko.
Yeah, that's a thing that I did.
Yeah, how do you feel?
I hope nobody watches the video
Well, they're gonna.
because my Suriashi is not as good as I was hoping it was.
Nobody looks good doing Suriashi for the first time, especially on that mat could be a little sticky.
That was mostly my problem. Like, if I were wearing socks, it would be so much... because we do that all the time in here on the linoleum, and it's
Yeah.
not an issue. I can slide around all fucking day. But when it's, like, sticky, sweaty feet on plastic mats, it's a little bit different.
It definitely is, but you have to force your way through. You got to be forceful with it, and pretty much you'll get used to it. The terrain, the body movements, everything. But
Yeah, although I don't think that my Shikos looked as bad as I thought they would be on my first day.
they looked fine. I went back and I watched the live stream, and you looked fine
My first
doing the
one, I
Shikos.
lost my balance a little bit, but it was the first one.
You just got to work on your Suriashi and then your Tachi-ai and then get
Well,
into
you were
some
helping
fights.
me with the Tachi eyes, so...
Yeah.
I mean, I'm hooked now. I'm gonna have to just start going every week, and hopefully my body will comply with my desire to start doing good sumo.
Yeah, it just takes repetition and practice. You'll get it.
Also, we noticed on the social medias that a couple of people in the amateur sumo world have had some birthdays.
I heard it's
recently.
somebody's birthday. So, happy birthday to Nate that does the Tennessee Sumo Instagram page. We've seen your travels and training up with Ohio Sumo and with Florida Sumo. You're doing big things.
DIY style.
Hell yeah, bringing that DIY spirit to sumo in Tennessee. Fuck yeah, and happy birthday.
Happy birthday!
And it is also the happy birthday of the illustrious Markinas.
Mark Nasty.
Happy birthday. I hope it kicks ass. And if you go to round 1, play some Street Fighter for me.
Yeah. Just don't play against me because I'll beat you. Just like I beat Matt.
Don't let her lie to
Every
you like
time.
that. Whatever. Well, she actually did. Button masher.
See? I'm not a button masher. There's skill to my mashing. Now that I've gotten you to admit that I beat you all those times at Street Fighter, it's time to introduce the main subject of today's episode.
The meat.
Today, we will be discussing Hinomaru Sumo!
Woo!
The #1 inspiration for, like, half of U.S. amateur sumo to start doing sumo.
Pretty much. I do know that there are those out there that are like, oh God, this fucking anime, Jesus Christ. And it's cheesy. It really admittedly is because it's very shonen. It has that whole, I'm gonna work hard and trump talent and that's how I do my ninja way or whatever.
And because so many people have told us that it's one of the main reasons that they've gotten into sumo, I think it's important to talk about it because we really don't get a lot of exposure to that aspect of Japanese culture in the US. And so for a lot of people, this was like the first time they really got to know what sumo was all about.
And not only that, but got to have it be portrayed as something like super exciting and
Very
dramatic.
shonen.
And that was my favorite thing about it. Everyone had a special move with a really cool name. Just the fight scenes. I love how just elongated the fight scenes were because sumo usually lasts maybe 8 seconds.
But it's not necessarily everyone's introduction to sumo. There's still probably plenty of people who've never watched the anime, never read the manga, don't really know what it's about.
Yeah, there's
except
people.
Sumo.
There's people that actually haven't. They don't even watch the pros that do amateur sumo. They're just like, oh no, I just got into it through my jujitsu instructor.
Yeah, or people who don't even follow amateur sumo and only like watch the bajos or follow pro sumo. We actually met a few at the Cowboy Cup. Weirdly,
Yeah,
they were like participating in an amateur sumo competition, but they were like, "Oh yeah, I only watch the bajos."
Yeah, I thought that was kind of funny. I mean, like, you gotta know your competition. You gotta know who you're up against.
Maybe they don't watch anime either. Who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things that we're going to do with this episode is we're going to discuss the characters in Hinomaru Sumo and some of the story and the plot, just to get the people who aren't familiar with it more familiar.
And then the people that are familiar with it could hear our fucking hot takes on shit.
Well, that, and while doing research on this episode, we did find some interesting little tidbits that
Very
a lot of people
interesting.
probably don't know.
Yeah.
So the anime actually stays surprisingly true to the manga. The only real difference is that the fight scenes in the manga are more plentiful and probably like longer too. It's not like Dragon Ball Z fucking lengths of 40 episodes per fight or anything like that, which I really appreciate actually, because that can get a little bit excessive. But I mean, I would actually compare it to Dragon Ball Z because it is shonen as fuck.
Oh, yeah. Well, not only that, but they also utilize, the whole tournament plot device. That is so prevalent in a lot of shonen. But Dragon Ball Z is the one that kind of really started that whole thing, like with the World's Martial Arts Tournament. And it does make things a bit easier. I mean, Yu Yu Hakusho uses it. Naruto uses it. There's this whole tournament shebang. And of course, we're talking about a sport with actual fucking tournaments and competition. So of course, they would use that. It fits. It's not like a lazy plot device or something like that.
Right, exactly. And another thing that it shares with a lot of those types of anime is that there's so much fight narration.
Lots of fight narration.
Just so much of it. If there are other characters witnessing a fight, those characters are going to tell you what's going on in that fight.
Yeah, they're going to go into their own thoughts. The side characters are going to do all of the exposition, and they're going to talk about what they know about the fight going on and the trials and tribulations the guy they're rooting for had to go through to get to where they're at.
Exactly. Another notable thing about this anime, no nipples.
No nipples.
No nipples
None
whatsoever.
of them have nipples.
There is a dearth of nipples in this
Coach
anime.
Shibakiyama, no nipples.
No
Hinomaru,
nipples.
no nipples.
No nipples on any one
Shinya
of them.
Ozeki,
Nope.
no nipples.
No nipples. Absolutely no nipples. So let's give a little bit of a breakdown of the main character, the man himself, Hinomaru Ushio. This guy is basically Goku and Ash Ketchum and Yu-Gi-Oh! All rolled into one. He just wants to be the very best fight boy like no one ever was. And he keeps challenging people to duel. So yeah, he's like that shonen protagonist. His ultimate goal, of course, is to become Yokozuna because that's the highest level you can get in sumo. Although there is a bit of a issue at first where he thinks he can't be like a pro Yokozuna because he's too short. But as the story progresses, things happen. And well, you're just gonna kind of have to
Yeah, well, let's just say he
read the
didn't
manga
have
or maybe
he didn't
watch the
have to
anime.
inject silicone into his scalp like Mina Umi did.
That's right. Oh my god, I still can't believe that's an actual thing that happened in reality.
Yeah, Mina Umi injected silicone into his scalp and turned himself into a cone head so that he could be a part of pro sumo.
Just so he can be like a couple of centimeters taller.
Yeah.
So that he can get into pro sumo. What a fucking, what do they call them? Mad lads?
Mad lad.
Is that what they're calling them these days? So he even has the really wild anime protagonist hair. I think it's very reminiscent of like a Yu-Gi-Oh! Or something like that, where it's mostly black, but then it's got that shock of color around it. His is like red.
Yeah.
But he's also very short, as we mentioned. Short king, and just completely covered in scars, which we don't really give any indication of why that is. It's kind of implied. Maybe it's just because he trained so hard.
Yeah, that's kind of what you get out of the manga too. It shows like flashbacks of him training, you know, like just backyard stuff. So I'm sure like his little training equipment that he just kind of like duct taped together probably scratched him the fuck up. That's why he looks so tough now. He's like, fuck yeah, I just trained with my backyard bullshit. Bring it on.
If you look at some of the pictures of him from the manga when he does actually finally get into pro sumo, he looks like such a fucking badass.
He does. He really
with that
does.
chonmage and yeah. Anyway.
The chonmage actually fits. You know, when he's a little kid in high school and all that, and his hair is just kind of like wild hair.
Mm-hmm.
He looks like he was meant for the chonmage in those illustrations. It just really fits.
Yeah, and that's kind of reminiscent too of a lot of real life sumo wrestlers in the pros, you know, when they first get in, or, you know, as they're coming to the end of their high school sumo career, amateur sumo, whatever, they just kind of look like these shaggy dudes.
Yeah.
And then, you know, they get their head shaved when they first get into the pros, and then as it grows out, it just gets so much more shaggier. And then it finally gets long enough for them to put it up in the traditional style.
Yeah, like old a Tommy Fuji, like his hair still isn't long enough for the full on, you know, oichomage. He's just got like the little kind of Makushita looking one.
Yeah.
And then you have like Endo and Ichinojo. When those guys got up to Sekitori status, their hair wasn't even long enough for a chonmage. They
Dude.
just wore it all slicked back.
Ichinojo, when he was younger and he had that fucking like long shaggy hair,
Yeah.
looked like have you ever seen that picture of him all covered in like dirt and mud and
Yeah,
shit,
and his
just
hair's
standing
just all
there,
fucking-
his legs, you know, kind of apart a little bit, and he's just got his hair falling into his face, and he looks like such a fucking beast.
He does. It's fucking. That's one of my favorite pictures of Ichinojo.
Mine too.
All right.
Too.
But we digress.
Yeah.
We were talking about Hinomaru.
So the show starts with Hinomaru trying to find an uber fancy high school, but he really has no sense of direction whatsoever, so he ends up showing up at a completely different high school instead. At this other high school, he meets a student named Shinya Ozeki, who is the huge sumo nerd of this random high school and has somehow been allowed to build his own dohyo on the school grounds.
Well, there's like a reason for that. You know, all the bullies like took over the actual dojo where they were supposed to have sumo practice. And that's like the bully hangout now. And so they're in there doing delinquent things. And then Ozeki had to go build, you know, the dojo outside.
Right, but when I was in school, I used to get in trouble for digging holes at recess.
Same.
Like, I would get detention forever if I built a dojo on school grounds. That is so wild to me. I don't know. Japanese schools must be different.
Yeah. So all the high school bullies come around and they end up fucking that dojo up, like the homemade dojo that Ozeki built.
They totally trash it.
Yeah, totally fucking trashed it. And Hinomaru at this time comes back from trying to find Ishigami High School again.
Yeah, he gets lost again.
Even after Ozeki made him a map.
At the same wrong high school.
Finds the dojo destroyed and he's pissed. He finds Ozeki who's crying and he's just, I guess I just gotta give up. So they go to the dojo where fucking they meet Yuma fucking Gojo.
Yes, this is the point where Hinomaru takes on his ultimate anime protagonist white knighting characteristic and decides to challenge the head bully, Yuma, to a sumo duel.
So he beats the bully, well, you know, Yuma Gojo, who is then like, okay, you beat me, so you must be cool. I'll let you have the dojo for your sumo club, and also I want to join.
Yeah. There's a little bit of...
hemming and hawing.
Yeah, a little bit of hemming and hawing, and a little bit of an existential crisis, like, am I really the bully I thought I was?
Yeah, can I even bully people anymore since I got beat by this shrimpy dude? So... Hinomaru decides to just stay at Odachi High, which is totally the wrong high school. He kept trying to find Ishigami High.
He keeps ending up there anyway. It must be fate.
It's fate. So essentially, he and Shinya Ozeki and Yuma Gojo all become the first three members of the Odachi High Sumo Club.
So then, after this happens, they meet this luchador type guy who's apparently like super fucking annoying and just kind of a dipshit. And he's also this national wrestling champion, and he has dreams of becoming big in American MMA and all this other crap.
Yeah.
His name is Chihiro Kunisaki.
Yeah, he's got like band-aids on his face and, you know, green hair, and he's talented. He's a good fighter, but he's just kind of a jackass, you know. So anyway, Hinomaru challenges him to a fight, and Kunisaki gets to use his regular wrestling rules against Hinomaru's sumo techniques. And of course, Hinomaru wins.
But while they're fighting, there's this other kid who's watching the fight. His name is Mitsuhashi K. He's this even shrimpier dude, even smaller than Hinomaru. He's like fucking 3 feet tall and like 50 pounds. Okay, not really.
Maybe like 4 feet tall and 75 pounds. Not
Maybe,
really.
no.
He's you know, he's a ninth grader.
Yeah, he's this scrawny little boy, but he sees this and he thinks sumo is like the coolest thing now. So he decides he's going to join the Odachi High Sumo Club too.
So they got Chihiro Kunisaki and Mitsuhashi K, and so they're starting to get a little bit more rounded out. Mm-hmm. And then a bespectacled student shows up who claims to know Hinomaru, and he displays many of the tropes common of glasses-clad anime characters, such as perpetually pushing up his slipping spectacles and shiny glasses of ulterior motives. This is Kirihito Tsuji, and it turns out his whole deal is that he feels really guilty about saying some mean shit to Hinomaru one time and wants to help him become the very best, like no one ever was.
I wanna be the very best.
He also has super crippling asthma, and even though he used to do sumo with Hinomaru whenever they were younger, he can't do it anymore without almost dying. You know what they say, if you can't do, teach.
You can teach, yeah.
Yeah. Other notable characters include Yuma's sister, Reina, who at first thinks sumo is just totally fucking clown shoes, but then ends up becoming one of the managers of the sumo club. The other manager is Hori Chizuko, who Hinomaru rescued from a molester on the train in the first episode. She filmed a tournament with Ishihai and got all of the Odachi High School to support the sumo club.
Yeah, so this is about the point where they start gearing up to do their first tournaments and going through all the training and stuff. But before we get into that, I did just want to touch on one very quirky thing about the dubbed version of the anime. Instead of shouting Hakioi, which, if you know anything about sumo, you know that's how they announce the beginning of the fight. That's when you're supposed to start.
Amateur, yeah.
Yeah.
So like in amateur sumo, they say you go when they say Hakioi. In pro sumo, they go and then you hear the gyoji say Hakioi.
Right. But in Hinomaru Sumo, they don't say Hakioi. They say spirit. And it's only in the English dub. And it's just weird to me because English-speaking sumo wrestlers, like amateur sumo wrestlers, they use Hakioi.
Yeah.
They don't... It's kind of a rough translation. Like, Hakioi, yeah, it roughly means spirit or whatever.
Let's see some spirit.
Yeah. But it's just... It sounds kind of wonky every time they say it in the anime.
It is something that kind of bothered me about it. But, I mean, that's only, you're going to run into the people now that are saying, well, if you watch the subtitled in the original Japanese, you don't have that problem.
Okay, but if I want to listen to a show while I'm doing the dishes, then I'm not going to fucking put on something with subtitles.
True.
Yeah, I like the subtitled versions of anime because I do think you get a lot more of the context that way.
Yeah.
But I'm an adult. I gotta multitask, goddammit.
And honestly, I really don't see all the hate about dubbed anime anyway, but I digress.
Yeah, some people have bad eyesight and they need to listen to it instead of reading the fucking screen. So
Yeah, like
why don't
me.
you stop being ableist? No, but really, I just wanted to touch on that a little bit just because it's weird.
There's a part on there where Hinomaru is saying Hakioi to himself before he, goes on a tachiai. So in the dub, it's funny because you could actually see his mouth forming the syllables Hakioi.
Right.
But for some reason, they just kind of shoehorn spirit into there. And it's just like, that is not what that boy is saying. So they go through some trials and tribulations, some unorthodox training methods and whatnot. The characters start developing in some very interesting yet very shonen kind of ways. Mm-hmm. So Yuma wants to atone for throwing salt in the game of Shinya Ozeki, and he feels racking guilt over the whole thing. Meanwhile, Ozeki is just treating him like a friend and a comrade, and it's just eating him up. He has to confront his past as a hooligan in order to grow as a sumotori. And Kunasaki is definitely a fun character. Yes, he is a jackass, and he annoys the shit out of Sabrina. But I like him because I know so many people like him. He's a total jackass, and he is so talented that he makes everything look effortless. He's a technician, and he has superb fighting instincts, and he can copy techniques he's only seen a few times, just right off the bat. He's a donkey, but damn if he doesn't have some talent.
Yeah.
And then there's Mitsuhashi. Mitsuhashi begins to kind of suss out his own style of sumo instead of just trying to emulate Hinomaru's, Yokozuna style. He starts getting cerebral and highly unorthodox with some of his methods. Since he's smaller and lacks the mass of most other sumotori, he utilizes the hinka and mata, false starts, in a sort of psychological warfare against larger opponents.
And that's what I love about lightweight sumo is that it's such a different game when you
really
have
is.
Those lightweight wrestlers in there. It's so much more frenetic, but it is also, I think, in a lot of ways more psychological because you're not just doing like bulk against bulk. You got to really be quick-witted.
Yeah, exactly. So Shinya Ozeki starts out shy and a bit shaky, but as he pushes forward in the series, he gains more confidence and reliability in a fight. Mm-hmm. He has such a big heart and was willing to forgive Yuma so easily for destroying the dojo he built. And it really took him forgiving Yuma for Yuma to grow, as a sumotori. Then we have Kirihito Tsuji. He finds himself working behind the scenes, pulling some strings, has his fingers in all sorts of pies. So he's doing all of this stuff to afford the Odachi High Sumo Club the best training opportunities that he can muster. He jumps in the dojo a couple of times, once to prove to the sumo club that he actually knows what the fuck he's talking about. And again, after an injury, takes out one of the main team members during a tournament. So he has to pick up the slack.
Surprisingly, he doesn't die during either one of those.
So Hinomaru fights his own battles with self-doubt and fear and desperation. He also deals with the challenges of having a smaller build than some of his opponents and having his techniques dissected by some of his rivals. He trains with the Shibakiyama stable and Coach Shibakiyama himself. And I just love that part whenever he's Hinomaru's doing Suriashi in the training room by himself, and he goes out in the middle of the night and sees Hinomaru, just takes off his shirt, and he's like, yeah, let's do this, kid. And he's like, wait, what are you doing? He's like, come on, I don't just take my shirt off for anybody.
Yeah.
Which is another part that probably could have used some nipples.
Yeah, right? No, that was a pretty cool part, though, because then, like, the whole stable wakes up and goes to watch them, and then they're like, well, fuck it, it's like 3 o'clock in the morning or whatever.
Let's just start
our training now.
And so after demonstrating his resolve and his skills to Sinoyama, he gets invited to stay the night at the stable. Mm-hmm. And he also trains with a former Yokozuna named Shunkai Tokyo, who is an eccentric and cantankerous old man who lives in a palace. These older gents, they just see something in Hinomaru and they just want him to succeed. When Hinomaru gets an injury to his arm, Shibakiyama takes him to see Dr. Tetsuji Kanye, who has all of these like space-age medical gadgets that get Hinomaru back into the ring. And like cryogenic shit. I mean, it's seriously...
it looks like very technologically advanced. Like, I don't think any of that stuff exists in real life.
It might. You never know. I mean, look at the NFL. I bet they have that shit.
They do get a lot of money.
Yeah. So, okay, interesting side note. So, if you're listening to us at Sumo Punx, more than likely you've probably listened to Sumo Kaboom. And if you've listened to a past couple of episodes, they talk about Demon Kaka. Mm-hmm. Demon Kaka wears lots of, like, kind of kabuki-inspired makeup, and he does his hair in, like, Liberty spikes, and he wears, like, armor and all these elaborate costumes.
And he's a musician, right?
Yeah, yeah.
He used to be in a metal band.
Yeah, he's done a few metal albums and shit. Very advanced, highly theatrical kind of stuff. But anyway...
Very eccentric dude.
Not only
this is a real life dude we're talking about.
This is a real life dude, yeah. Demon Kaka, and he is also really super obsessed with sumo. Loves sumo. Demon Kaka actually went to was it Amanishki's Danpatsuki just recently?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, so he has been a sumo commentator before. It was pretty wild. So it's funny that in the Japanese version, he did the voice for Dr. Tetsuji Kanye. So that's Demon Kaka.
Yeah, playing the real nutty fucking doctor with all the
gadgets.
The sci-fi gadgets and shit, yeah.
And then it's kind of funny because whenever, in the second part, you know, after the anime, when the manga continues on, Yuma Gojo actually apprentices under that doctor. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. Thank you, Demon Kaka.
Thank you, you weirdo.
One of the things that I really liked, and one of the first kind of trials that they face, is the Chiba preliminaries against Ishihai. So the highlights for this tournament, in my personal opinion, has to be Shinya Ozeki versus Sanada Yuki, and Hinomaru versus Sada Mizuki. So the whole backstory of Sanada fighting an army of delinquents that threatened to burn down their practice spot is really badass. Ishigami High has a reputation for being the delinquent school, you know, where all the bad kids go. And Yuma Gojo kind of has that reputation as well. So, you know, people are thinking, who are these delinquents? But Sanada really wasn't a delinquent. He really wasn't involved in that crowd. It's just that when they threatened to burn down the sumo practice area, he called Kanamori, the captain of Ishihai, and said, hey, dude, I gotta quit. He's like, what? Why? I thought you loved sumo. Oh, he's like, you know I do. But I got some shit I gotta take care of. Hangs up on him and then just beats the shit out of all of these fucking dudes. You know how the delinquents have that super long fucking
bouffant sort
is it
of thing.
Or whatever they call it. What's that, pompadour?
Pompadour, yeah.
Yeah, it's like a big giant
Same
unicorn.
difference.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of pompadour dudes he's just beating the hell out of. And then Kanamori talks to him. He looks at his hands. His hands are all busted up from punching. He's like, what, you thought I was gonna use sumo on them? I wouldn't give him the honor. So that was pretty cool. Sanada is actually one of my favorite characters, and I love that he just wears this shirt that just says cat, and it just has a little cat on it. The fight with Hinomaru and Sada Mizuki was super badass. It was like way intense and lots of internal dialogue, fight dialogue, and again, it's, you know, one of these bouts that's probably maybe 30, 45 seconds at the very most, but of course it takes half an episode. And that's whenever you start to see some of these techniques. You know, of course, Hinomaru has his demon wheel and his 100 demon drop and all that. Sada has his first quarter moon and half moon, crescent moon, you know, his very lunar.
All the moons.
All of the moons. And what's cool about Sada is his mawashi is always pristine white because he's so good, no one could ever get a grip on it. And yeah, he's the guy with the Cameron Diaz like little thing in front. You know, like on Something About Mary when she has
the jizz in her hair.
Yeah, and that's kind of what Sada has in the front. It's just kind of like, you know, these little fingers of just straight
jizz
sticking
hair.
up hair. Yeah, jizz hair. He's got jizz hair. But he's, you know, everyone thinks he's super sexy. So the gang does pretty well in the prelims, and they get invited to Nagoya to train. So Hinumaru actually gets to go with Shibakayama, and Sainoyama ends up taking him into a tent, but there's a whole bunch of other Sekitori there, and they're totally dicks. In the English version, they really butcher the word Maegashira.
Yeah.
They say, oh, he's the 5th rank Magashira.
Magashira.
And it's just like, come on, guys. But I'm not sure if Funimation or whoever it is, if they have a whole lot of
I believe
sumo
it is
fans there.
Funimation.
Really? They should let us redo that and say,
Yeah,
hey, let us fucking supervise the redubbing of Hinomaru
I mean,
Sumo.
they're literally down the street from us. We can just walk down there and be like, hey, let us be voice actors on your sumo anime.
Yeah, and we'll make it accurate.
That's not a joke, by the way. They literally, like, they're headquartered in the DFW. Okay, maybe it's not down the street, but we can go there and we can complain about anime. If you guys have anime you want us to complain about directly to Funimation, please let us know.
Okay, so anyway, Hinumaru shows a few of the Sekitori, you know, his 100 demon drop, and then it gets dissected. He's starting to feel kind of bad, and then around this time, while he's training in the tent, there's Hori Chizuko and Reina Gojo. They're just kind of like, you know, filming in secret, and then this like cantankerous old man shows up. It's that Shunkai Tokyo guy. You know, and so he's like, well, you know what? Let's take the shrimp out of there, and I'm going to go train him at my house. And, you know, he looks at the girls. He's like, one of you girls has to come with me. You, the sassy one. Get over here. He takes the sassy one and Hinumaru, and then
That's
they end
Reina.
up... Yeah, Reina, the sassy one.
Reina the sassy one.
And he trains Hinumaru in a very decidedly kind of Karate Kid-esque kind of way. He's like, here's 100 yen. You have to make me this super specific kind of curry with only 100 yen. You know, it's just to kind of get him to think outside the box, you know, and break the mold. So before Hinumaru started doing all of this, he actually encountered a kid named Hikage Tinma, who is huge, super tall, got limbs like fucking goddamn trees.
He's one of the national treasures.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. We'll get to what the national treasure. That's like a designation.
In the world of the anime, it indicates that you've reached like a high level in amateur sumo.
Yeah,
basically.
like the elementary school or middle school yokozunas. You know, they get to be called national treasures. But we'll get into that here in a bit.
High school.
Yeah, but he meets, you know, one of these national treasures, and they are very aware of each other. And there's a historical reenactor that is playing the part of Maeda Keiji, and he's like, who wants to have a sumo bout? Who wants to have a sumo bout? Of course, Hinomaru has to, oh, me, pick me, Keiji. And then there was this other guy, Tenma, and he's like, no, Keiji was looking at me. And so, of course, they get into it. All right, well, let's have a bout, and whoever wins gets to fight Keiji. And so during that whole thing, Hinumaru is about to bust out his brand new move, you know, the 100 demon drop. But as soon as he gets a good grab on Tenma, he goes cold. His nipples get hard. Well, if he had any. But
if he had nipples, they would go hard.
But he gets cold, and he gets this chill, and, you know, he kind of feels this dark aura. And he looks up, and Tenma just has his arms out to his side like, what's wrong? Bring it on. Let's see your throw. And Hinumaru's just kind of scared shitless for a second. But then at about that time, that's whenever the Kanazawa Kita high school sumo captain stops the bout and is like, oh, I'm sorry. I know you guys had some shit going on, but we're just going to have to do this later. And just kind of runs off, you know. But as he's walking away, he starts talking some shit about Hinumaru's moves. Ooh. because these guys had been watching the Ishihai tournament and started dissecting his techniques, and that scared the shit out of him. So that's the thing that he started learning with Shunkai Tokyo, this former Yokozuna, and that was the whole point of the here's 100 yen, make me this specific type of food, was to get him to think about the different kinds of situations and ways and methods that he could really use this technique and not just, have it shat on, because it does get shat on quite a lot, especially by the pros. Anyway, we're getting ready for the national championships at this point. Everybody's getting geared up and getting ready. Hinomaru's training with the pros, and then, the rest of the guys are training, with different high schools. And meanwhile, Reina Gojo, probably something I should have mentioned before, but she's the class president, so she has a lot of resources at her disposal. So while the boys are gearing up for their national inter-high championship tournament, we're going to take a slight detour and talk about some of those opponents that he was facing. We mentioned National Treasures earlier, so we really kind of wanted to just take some time to explain what that is, not just in the anime, but the
in real life.
Yeah,
too.
the real life stuff that this has to do with.
Yeah, these characters are named after actual Japanese national treasures. Kind of like the crown jewels of Japan.
Yeah.
Except if the crown jewels were all fancy-ass old weapons.
It's kind of like these kids are likened to being these treasured blades, so it's kind of like an honor that they get these little names while they're in elementary school.
It's sort of like a pre-Shikona too. The name that you get when you join pro sumo that's called the Shikona. But I think it's something that they just created for Hinomaru Sumo.
Yeah, I mean,
for the manga and the anime, because
correct us if we're wrong. But...
Yeah, definitely correct us if we're wrong, because it's not anything that I've seen anywhere else. So they give these kids these kind of pre-Shikonas, and then some of the characters actually end up keeping them. But while we were researching this episode, we found out all this fascinating information about the actual swords these characters get their names from. We're going to go through a few of these national treasures right now. And of course, the first one is Hinomaru himself, the main dude. The fucking...
Yu-Gi-Oh! Zeki. Yokozugio.
Gokuzuna. Yes, so Hinomaru, his national treasure moniker is Onimaru Kunitsuna, the demon sword. Ooh. This is an actual sword. And Hinomaru ends up going by Onimaru when he finally gets to pro sumo later on.
That becomes his Shikona. And then he just gets referred to as a little demon throughout the series.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet. So the Onimaru Kunitsuna is a real sword that was forged during the Kamakura period by a blacksmith known as Awataguchi Kunitsuna. So the sword's kind of named after him. The Onimaru belonged to Hojo Tokiyori, a regent of the Kamakura shogunate. Tokiyori had been plagued by nightmares of a demon until one day the sword ended up moving all by itself, as inanimate objects do, I guess. I mean, it probably just fell off of the sword stand, really, but the story's not as interesting if you just say it fell. The weird thing is, as it was falling, it sliced across the neck of a demon figure that was etched into the side of a clay pot. Some stories say that this figure was actually carved into the leg of the sword stand itself. Either way, from that point on, Tokiyori no longer had the nightmares, and hence the sword got its name.
Yeah.
Another character who has a national treasure moniker is Kuze Sosuke. He is the son of a Yokozuna and one of Hinomaru's main rivals. The national treasure moniker that he has is Kusunagi no Tsurugi. Originally, this was called the Heavenly Sword of Gathering Clouds. Its name was changed, however, to the Grass-Cutting Sword.
Like a lawnmower?
Yeah, sure. The Lawnmower Sword. According to the legend of this sword, the god Susanoo came across a family of miner gods.
You mean like coal miners?
No. Like, not the big gods, but the little gods.
Ah, okay.
Not the
Not
head...
major, but minor. Okay.
Yeah. So, this family of minor gods were grieving the loss of 7 of their 8 daughters to the fearsome 8-headed serpent Koshi, who had eaten the girls and was stalking the last daughter. Susanoo agreed to slay the serpent in exchange for the last daughter's hand in marriage. When he slayed the beast, he discovered a sword inside its body. He gave this sword to the goddess Amaterasu to settle an old debt. Hundreds of years later, the sword was given to the great warrior Yamato Takeru. While fighting a dastardly warlord, he found himself surrounded on all sides by fire in the middle of a grass field, as the warlord's soldiers had been firing flaming arrows at him. He used the sword to cut the grass around where he was standing, as to diminish the chances of the grass around him catching fire. But while he was doing this, he learned that the sword had another secret power. It could control the wind. So he used this ability to blow the fire toward the warlord and his men and escape to safety. He then gave the sword its current name.
So
The Lawnmower Sword.
Well, cutting all that grass to save his own skin. Okay, well, maybe not mowing a lawn, but
Essentially, though, it's kind of the same thing.
yeah, but that's like such a cooler story, you know. And that's just like, okay, well, I understand. That's like a keen sword and a keen
I'm still
story.
going to call it the Lawnmower Sword because I think it's funny.
In Naruto, they just say the grass sword.
Oh, do they? Do they
Yeah.
have the same sword in Naruto?
Yeah, because Orochimaru has that sword, and he just calls it the grass sword.
So much Naruto. I have to watch the girlfriend cut finally because I cannot get through all of the Naruto. There's just too much of it. Anyway, why don't you tell us about the next national treasure, Sada Mizuki?
All right, Sada Mizuki, the one that everyone thinks is sexy and has the Cameron Diaz
Jizz hair.
bangs. Yeah. Anyway, so he is named Mikazuki Munachika, the Crescent Moon Sword. Crafted by legendary swordsmith Sanjo Munachika, this sword has a crescent moon pattern down the blade. It has been owned by many powerful samurai and shogun over the past 1,000 years. It is said that when Munachika was crafting the sword, he had received a rush order on it, but since swords took a whole hell of a lot of time and patience to make back then, he feared he would not have it completed by the deadline. He decided to go to the Inari shrine to pray for help. An incarnation of the god Inari then appeared to assist him, and he was able to complete the sword on time.
Nice. I wish I could get assistance like that at my job.
For
Just
real.
have a god come down and be like, "Hey, bro, I heard you were having a hard time.
Yeah,
Want
here.
me to help you with that?"
Here, I heard you had some trouble troubleshooting this computer problem. Here,
Yeah.
let me help you.
Well, next we have Hikage Tinma. This is the tall guy who's pretty surly. He
Yeah.
has, the hair that kind of falls in his face. His national treasure moniker is Odenta Mitsuyo, the Great Denta Sword. This was forged by Miike Denta Mitsuyo, and the sword apparently has healing properties. The daughter of Toshiie Maeda, who was named Princess Gohime, became very ill, so Maeda laid the sword beside her and started to pray, which miraculously cured the princess.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much the only thing I found about this sword. It's a healing sword.
It's legendary.
Weird thing for a sword to do, because you usually think of swords as like killing instruments.
I mean,
but...
we've seen Inuyasha.
Oh, yeah, true.
You know, like what Inuyasha's brother has the Tenseiga, which is a healing sword. Oh, Sesshomaru. And anyway, we're digressing along. You can tell how big of fucking nerds we are.
We're such fucking weebs. After that, we have Tenoji Shido, who is the kind of goth character
Yeah.
in Hinomaru Sumo. He has the eyeliner. He has no eyebrows.
He's got like that Sandman kind of hair, too.
Yeah. So the national treasure that he has his moniker from is called the Dojigiri Yasutsuna. When this sword was first forged by Ohara Yatsuna, he tested it by chopping up a bunch of convicted criminals into perfectly round little cutlets.
Yeesh.
It was then used to slay a demon named Shuten Doji with the help of a little bit of divine sleepy time wine. It's the oldest surviving katana in all of Japan.
That's
this
pretty
thing's
cool.
like super freaking old. Older than your grandma.
Then we have Kirihito Tsuji, the asthmatic glasses kun, coach and leader of the Odachi High Sumo Club. He is named Onikiri Yasatsuna. Legend has it that Minamoto no Yorimitsu used this sword to defeat the ogre Ibaraki Doji by whacking off his arms at the Rashomon Gate of Kyoto.
It was interesting when I came across this little tidbit of information about this sword because Rashomon is actually one of the suggested kimarite that someone gave us when we asked people what their Hinomaru Sumo kimarite or finishing move would be called. And we definitely cannot wait to talk about some of the entries that we got for that. But we did want to talk a little bit about what happened after the National Inter-High Championships in the story, because there's this huge time skip.
Yeah. So if you've only watched the anime, you know that after the Inter-High is pretty much whenever that series just stops. But that's not when
For
the
now,
story
anyway.
that's not when the story itself stops. And I'm really, really hoping that they make an animated season 2, because that would be really fucking cool.
But it skips ahead like 3 years,
Yeah,
right?
3 years. In that time frame, we're not going to spoil the Inter-High and all of that stuff too much, but Hinomaru ends up joining Pro Sumo as a Sandanme Tsukadashi, and he's living the dream. It doesn't matter that he's under the height limit or whatever, and he does look pretty damn cool with the damn chanmage.
Yeah.
And a couple of the other guys, of course, you know that Kuze Sosuke, son of a Yokozuna, of course he made it into the pros. And Shiro Tenoji made it into the pros.
Pretty much all of the main characters made it into the pros.
And some of the side characters, too. There was a skinny Mongolian wrestler that was a part of, not Eiga High, he was part of the other one. It was called Totori Hakuro.
Yeah.
Yeah, Totori Hakuro, yeah. Anyway, so this skinny Mongolian kid named, is it Monkbat? Something. It
don't know. It
bears
sounds
a
like-
passing resemblance to Hakuho's real name,
Yeah.
And so Monk Batin, Bat Bayar, or something like, everyone just calls him Bat.
Yeah.
But whenever he goes pro, guess what his Shikona is? Hakuro Show. So
Yeah.
that was kind of a nod, I thought. And there's a couple of others, like Tenma Hikage, his older brother is a wrestler named Daikeisho. So, I mean, there's a little bit of nods every now and again.
But then there are some characters that actually end up doing something completely different.
Yeah, so we all remember Kunisaki. Kunisaki did end up moving to America and becoming involved in MMA, and he reproduced.
Yeah, he had
Yeah.
a kid.
Yeah, he's a single dad raising a kid and,
my
just
God.
dicking around.
I can't even imagine that guy as a father.
And Yuma Gojo ends up apprenticing with that Dr. Tetsuji Kanye, the wild, wacky doctor that had all of the gadgets. And so Yuma is getting into some sports medicine. Ozeki actually goes pro too, and he has the Shikona Tarutachi. And Kei Mitsuhashi, whenever the story first started, he was the equivalent of a 9th grader. I think they say like a first year or whatever. After the time skip, he's like a senior in high school, and so he's like all svelte and he's all muscular and he's building up some mass.
He's really grown into himself.
Yeah, he's much more confident. And it's like, yeah, Mitsuhashi, look at you.
Fuck yeah, dude. You're doing all right.
Yeah. And of course, Reina Gojo is there. And should I get super spoily? Should I get super spoilery?
Okay, one spoiler.
Oh, one spoiler. Okay, so I'm going to get super spoilery, and if you want to destroy me in the streets because of this, you can.
Fucking bring it.
But if you also just want to skip about maybe 10 seconds, then it won't be ultimately supremely spoiled for you. Anyway, so while Hinomaru is, working his way back up in the ranks of the pros, he gets super excited after a particular victory and just kind of proposes to Reina, like, on TV while being interviewed.
Just blurts it out in front of everybody.
Yeah, whenever you watch Pro Sumo and then like after their match, they're all out of breath talking in the Hanamichi. It was one of those interviews, and he was like, "Yeah, will you marry me?"
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can't even imagine, like,
And she ends up learning a whole lot about what was it, being a sumo wife or whatever from the Yokozuna's wife. The Yokozuna, his name is Gino. Or is it Gino? I'm saying Gino.
Reina does learn about being a quote-unquote sumo wife, which apparently is kind of like a full-time job.
Yeah, I heard Konishiki talk about it, how it was just a little stressful, So, everyone has their own lives just blossoming. People are going pro. People are pursuing all of these other careers and academics. And
it's
shit's
still
getting
just
wild.
as dramatic as it was before the time skip,
Yeah.
except, now they don't have to worry about school anymore.
But there's more on the line.
Yeah.
Hinomaru goes through, this weird phase where he just gets, I can't tell if it's anger and desperation.
He gets, murderous.
He does. He gets, super murderous. He's just like, ah. And then there is also, everybody is going to talk about this. I might as well just fucking mention it. But then whenever the manga was being written, it actually coincided with Donald Trump's visit to Japan.
God.
At the time that the manga came out, that's when Donald Trump was in Japan. So I'm sure that Kawada just wanted to put him in there, and it's very out of place. It's very silly. And it's not like Baki, whenever they're drawing all of the politicians, they just look kind of like caricatures. I can't tell if it's intentionally bad or...
Why is Trump in the manga?
He is. He's only in the last chapter. Yeah, and it's silly. We could totally make an edit. We'll make the
Oh my god, let's make memes out of that. Fuck it, why not?
Yeah, whatever. So that's pretty much the gist of the storyline of Hinomaru Sumo, and I left out the juicy bits, the bits that really want to make you keep reading. We just kind of gave you an overview. So rather than just giving you a full-blown synopsis or basically just be a Wikipedia article over the whole thing, if you hadn't read it or watched it, definitely do. It has inspired so many people.
Yeah, there's a reason
included.
why so many people say this is what got me into sumo.
It's very engaging. It's very exciting. It'll just kind of grab you by the boo-boos and shake you. It really is that good, and I do highly recommend it. However, there are going to be those guys out there, and I'm like, oh god, I can't stand that. That's such a stupid fucking anime. Why don't you watch any of the other good ones, like Rowdy Sumo Wrestler Matsutaru, or Hari Manada, or...
Actually...
We're going to cover those too.
Exactly. We are going to cover those. We have been watching them, and we're even going to have other anime where maybe it's not about sumo, other anime and manga, but where sumo shows up, like what's currently happening in Baki with the whole sumo story arc. So we're going to go over that as well. Like I said previously, this is going to end up being like a multi-part episode because anime and manga... with sumo, I mean, how much cooler can it get than that?
Seriously. And it's really involved, some of these stories, especially Rowdy Superhero Matsutaru. It's a very involved story. It's very dramatic.
I actually like that one better than Hinomaru Sumo.
I kind of like the Hari Manada.
Really?
And, yeah, the reason I like it is just because it totally demonizes the JSA.
Oh, yeah.
And you have, this unbeatable Yokozuna that is just so full of himself wearing this demon mask. And basically the entire series is just the JSA trying to throw different opponents at him to get him to lose. And there's a lot of dirty politics behind everything.
Yeah. Listen to the episode that we're going to have on that.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. I'm just getting carried away. I get too excited about these things.
He gets excited about sumo and anime.
I do.
So we've been alluding to these very unique kimarite that Hinomaru Sumo has. They seem to kind of just be made up, or at least we didn't find any evidence that there's actually any kimarite called 1 bajillion demon death drop or whatever the fuck. They've all got dramatic names like that, whereas real-life kimarite, with a few exceptions, tend to just be descriptive, like...
Uwata Dashinage.
Yeah, what does that mean?
It's like pulling over arm throw.
Yeah, see, shit like that. It's not as interesting as they make it in the anime and manga. But we kind of like that. We like the dramatic kimarite names. So we decided to try to come up with a few ourselves.
But we're just perverts.
Well, and we also did ask on our social media for others to tell us what their Hinomaru Sumo style kimarite would be. But first, let's go ahead and read off some of the just fucking stupid shit that we came up with.
During the course of us actually watching the anime, because there's the difference between watching it just to watch it and then watching it for research purposes. So for research purposes, Sabrina was just really like, why do they just have these goofy fucking names? And it just like confounded her. So she was like, you know what? What are they going to do next? The 1 million wiener tug? The demonic sharting apocalypse?
Exploding anal prolapse!
The sweaty cleavage crusher!
Great serpent scrotal smash!
But
that was pretty much all that we came up with. But we got some really interesting answers from you guys. So our old buddy Rick from the Dallas Sumo Club, he commented on our Instagram post that his would be called the Tyrant Tusk Thrust. Of course, Rick is our resident mutant warthog.
It works.
It does, yeah. His shikona is
It's a Gunyo Buta.
Gunyo Buta, that's right. But it essentially means
War boar or war warthog.
yes, fight pig.
Fight pig.
Then Caleb from Mighty Eagle Sumo Club down in San Antonio had Momentum Bull Rush, and I've seen his Tachi eye, so that really sounds apt for him.
I had to
You've
take that,
experienced it firsthand.
And that is very apt.
Then another one of our Instagram followers who goes by Slide Man said that his would be called Tenshi Jogenage, the heaven and earth inverted drop. Like, are they gonna drop somebody from space onto their head or something?
It sounds kind of more like, like Zangief on Street Fighter when he kind of turns you upside down and your head's between his knees and he's just boom.
I gotcha. Okay,
That's very pro wrestling.
Indeed. Well, then Nicholas Tan from Shogeki Sumo Club in Houston said he would use the infamous pocket sand technique that Dale from King of the Hill uses. I kind of wonder if anybody's tried that already. Like maybe they took a little doyo dust and just
salt.
like stuffed it, or salts maybe, stuffed it into their mawashi a little bit and then just toss it into the opponent's face.
I'm sure someone has tried it before. I'm sure it's very frowned upon in most circles.
There's
but
probably a rule against specifically that.
I bet someone has tried it, though. And then Brad Moss on Instagram said that his would be called the Fubar. For those that don't know what Fubar means, it stands for fucked up beyond all repair.
Yes, Fubar is a term that's been around for quite some time now. Then another one of our Instagram followers, Karabogia, said theirs would just be called Rashomon. And I kind of wondered, are they referring to the Kurosawa movie, or is it like the Rashomon Gate in Kyoto? Not really sure about that.
In Naruto, they have like a summoning technique called Rashomon that summons all of these like gates, and it does act like a defense, defensive technique. But also, I mean, if you're thinking of like these giant gates falling from the sky, something just slamming the back of someone's head or just slamming on top of someone, I could see like a really wicked Hitaki Komi, being called
to those
Rashomon.
as guillotines, but okay.
Whatever,
Maybe. I mean, hey, if it works, it works. So the next few that we got were actually from the Sumo Memes subreddit.
Oh, yeah. Username, The Royal Tart Toter, said that their move would be called Atamavamakage. He says, I would blast my opponents out of the ring with an atomic blast of vomited chanko.
Nice.
I'd look something like the boomers from Left 4 Dead. Gross, those guys are...
Oh.
They're all bloated and
That's a blast from the past. No pun intended. Then Butthurt Punk said that theirs would be called the Suridashi Hime. They described this move as a left hand inside into a princess carry out of the ring. So Matt actually described what a princess carry was to me earlier because I had no fucking clue. I was like, is that what Tochinoshin did to Inho that one time? But apparently it's not. It's actually probably more commonly called the carrying over the threshold when you get married and then you first like walk into your house with your new spouse.
So yeah, you're gonna, get a good deep left hand inside grip and then just kind of like, just plop them up in your arms,
sweet,
carry them over the
actually.
threshold of the Tawara.
I'm sure while they're kicking and struggling and trying to get away, but I don't know. I still think it's kind of sweet.
Oh. Well, Tuba Man 91 says the walrus waddle. Deep double inside grip. Leverage him up onto your belly and then baby step him out. That's very practical. And, I might actually have to utilize the walrus waddle. Okay, and then this screen name is kind of weird. 314 Piper.
Piper.
Piper. I mean, I know it's referencing pie with the 314.
Like a cat pastry.
Oh, okay. Well, okay.
Sure.
314 Piper. So they said theirs would be the Kobi Kotu Foroting Soramu. So the rear...
like a floating slam.
Yeah.
I think that's what they're trying to say.
They describe this as the rear Coccyx floating slam. It's a maneuver where you reach over your opponent from the front, gripping their L5S1 vertebral body. After securing proper leverage, a swift yank to the opponent's rear and up should lift them into the air backwards, rotating them forwards.
Oh, gosh.
Once airborne, release the grip and apply pressure to the center of the opponent's mass, aiming to slam them out of the confines of the doyo. Dollar dollar bill, y'all. His words, not mine.
That is the most complicated one I think we got.
But it's visually striking,
very
even in my mind's eye.
creative. Yeah. They've definitely got
They
an
thought about that.
understanding of anatomy that I clearly do not have.
All right, and then we have the one and only, the famous, well, at least famous to me because I see him everywhere, Defire. He comments on a lot of the Dallas Sumo Club stuff and see him on all of the sumo subreddits. Defire is really fucking cool. So this is what they said. As someone who watches anime, mine would probably be like the shining suplex of 1,000 suns. It just sounds like it would be in the show and would probably be impossible to do in real sumo. Unless it was Inho getting suplexed by prime Tochinoshin, then maybe.
Oh my God, that's so funny because I literally just referenced like Inho and Tochinoshin. I really liked this next one though. It was by Review Necessary 6521. They said that theirs would simply be called the 1,000 Couch Potato Fat Sit. That sounds like my kind of move.
I mean, that's my nightly technique.
And then the last one that we have is from After Aside 6394. They said they would probably call theirs something like 1,000 Wombat Cute Large Butt.
1,000 Wombat Cute Large Butt.
Yeah, they spelled wombat with a V. I think they might be European. Unless they mean like vomit bat.
I think they mean wombats.
But they also did say they are so happy to see so many people watching Hinomaru Sumo. It's a great manga.
And thank you guys so much for all of those submissions. We couldn't include all of them. We just included, the ones that made us laugh the hardest. So
Yeah, and I mean, there were quite a few of them, and we did end up using most of the ones that we got. A few of them got lost. Like, some people have been DMing our Instagram, and then, like, those disappeared.
Yeah.
I may just be bad at technology. I don't know.
Whatever.
So, Hinomaru Sumo is definitely a fun watch or read if you're reading the manga. It does have a lot of similarities to actual high school sumo in Japan, but there's a couple of things that are a bit different. As we've discussed, the weird kimarite, the
naming
special
conventions.
names.
Yeah.
But one of the big differences that we noticed was that there is actually women's high school sumo and collegiate sumo in Japan. They have their own tournaments and championships, and it was just kind of weird to not really see that in Hinomaru.
I think the reason is because it's shonen, and shonen just means for boys, for young boys. But I think it was supposed to connect with, that's their target audience whenever they, made the manga. But, in real life, there is, sumo at the elementary school, middle school, high school level, collegiate level. And there is, has someone that loves amateur sumo themselves. There are women all over the world that are involved in amateur sumo. And especially
I just started doing it myself.
Yeah.
Today.
But especially in Japan, there are lots of women that do sumo. So.
Yeah, we watched a very good documentary about
Konhyori.
Yep, about a female sumo wrestler in Japan who actually wrestles for her company's team.
And so other than, the lack of women doing sumo and Hinomaru Sumo, it was pretty similar to, I could see the regular high school, oh my God, do I fit in? Oh my God, I have to go to class. Yeah, that kind of thing. But of course it does get sensationalized because it is a story. So they have to say, oh, well, they were going to burn down the gym, or, oh, they did. Man, if half the shit that Yuma Gojo did was in like real life, that kid would be like expelled.
Dude, he'd
prison.
be like triple expelled.
Yeah.
He'd be ultra mega demon expelled.
Now that is a fucking school disciplinary kimarite. Jeez. So there are some similarities to real life, the way that Hinomaru got into the pros, through Sandanme Tsukadashi. The whole Tsukadashi thing is a real deal. That's how Ichinojo got into the pros. And a lot of these guys got into the pros from amateur, so from the amateur level, they just did so good at an amateur tournament that the pros are like, okay, yeah, go ahead. Come on in.
It makes or breaks these people's careers, how well they're doing in high school sumo and collegiate sumo, and not as much when they're younger. Once they get to like high school and college, that's when people are really starting to look at them as potential pro sumo rikishi.
The whole Enter High tournament that they have, that's the pinnacle of the anime or part one of the manga. They really do have tournaments like that. I mean, in amateur, that they do have weight classes, which they usually call regulation, and then they have open weight. The tournaments that Hinomaru wanted to take part in are all open weight, like the All Japanese Sumo Championships. That is so fucking cool to watch. If you ever get the chance, there's videos on YouTube of these tournaments, but they're all in Japanese. So if you could find a way to get All Japan Sumo Championship in kanji, you could search that kanji. I mean, that's what I did.
Google
I don't know.
Translate.
I was about to say, I might have to put the kanji in the notes on the description to this video just so that you could copy paste it and start looking at all of these old All Japan Sumo Championship tournaments, because you'll see some really familiar faces. I saw Mitake Yumi and Akisiyama and so many guys. Hokuto Fuji when he had hair.
Yeah.
It's really fucking cool. You get to see these guys all baby-faced, and, now we just see them all burly and beat up all the time, but to see them all fresh without knee braces.
And that's the kind of stuff that I want to see happen here in the U.S. as well.
Yeah.
So, listeners, if you know any kids who are even halfway decent at physical activity, and if you know anything about sumo at all, try to get these kids into sumo.
Yeah, exactly.
Try to get them interested in it at least.
We were watching European sumo tournaments, and they actually have youth divisions. Like, there are, 8, 9, 10-year-old kids, girls and boys, that are participating in sumo. And it's really badass. We watched
in South America too, like in Brazil.
Yeah, and especially in Brazil. So there's lots of youth participation in sumo all over the world. Just not in the
U.S.
Yeah, just not in the U.S. It's mostly, 30-somethings that are a bit weeby and, maybe, like to go to their local izakaya.
Don't call me out like that on my own podcast.
But I mean, that's who we are. When I got into sumo, I was in my 30s, and I'm a bit of a weeb, so that's kind of how it happens. I'm calling out my own here.
That's pretty much it for this episode on the anime and manga known as Hinomaru Sumo. One thing that we did get some feedback on recently was how some people actually missed the music recommendations we had in our earlier episodes. We really took it out because it was just taking too much time and focus away from the main subject of the episodes, which of course is sumo. But I don't know, I guess it kind of it's still something we're passionate about. And
Yeah,
we
hell
can
yeah.
still have a segment at the end like we did before called What Are You Listening to During Sumo Practice Today?
Well, whenever we went to Keiko today, it's silent. Corey likes to make sure that you could hear the meat smacking.
Yeah.
You know, that meat smacking tachi-ai feeling, that's something that we have to have in our videos. And I agree, it is really cool. But whenever I train sumo at home, you know, whenever I'm in the gym or, you know, doing my stretches, you know, I do listen to a lot of shit.
Or even on the way back in the car, we were listening to Street Sex.
Street Sex.
Which is a band from Austin, Texas that we have both been just obsessed with over the past couple of months. They're sort of like, what would you call them? Like a neo-industrial
with a lot of metal kind of influence, a lot of punk influence, and not metal in a sense of like it's not super heavy, you know what I mean? But it's got like lots of double bass rolls.
And just kind of encompassing some more experimental, out there on the fringes genres like noise music. I've been really getting into noise lately for whatever reason.
And it's very synth heavy.
Drum machines. And the way that the vocalist does his vocals is kind of reminiscent of some like older gothic stuff that I used to listen to. And I just really fucking dig that shit.
Mean, don't get me wrong. They could definitely go into some bone-curdling screams and shrieks that are very much kind of in the realm of power violence or something like that. But this music is not power violence. It can get fast and it can get aggressive, and it'll definitely make you want to kind of, you know, just thrash your body about when you hear it. But I would say there is a lot of crossover into the punk realm.
Oh yeah,
a little bit of dabbling of metal, but it's for the most part industrial with a goth bent, at least for me anyway. That's what I got.
The lyrics especially cover some pretty fucking depressing subjects, and
some
I don't
shit
know
that
the
I've
way
gone
that
through
they're
too.
Well, true, yeah. Some of the lyrics, just the way that they're crafted is just, it's like, mwah, chef's kiss of doom and gloom.
It really
is.
And so a lot of the stuff that I've been listening to of Street Sex, there's two songs that I've been really, really just on. The first one is And I Grew Into Ribbons.
That's the one everybody knows if they know Street Sex.
That's the first one that I heard. That's the one that got me into it. Present Tense and Tomorrow's a Trap, I really like those songs. But the other one that has been really just kind of gripping me, they did a song with Health.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Health's another kind of, electronic kind of band, industrial-ish, you know. But they have this song called The Joy of Sect. I love it. It's so fucking catchy. It kind of has like a little groovy kind of synthwave feel to it, you know, but then it's got some fucking shrieks and screams in there, you know, just kind of, but it's all very well done. It's all very beautiful, very ethereal.
And they're actually going to be touring. They're going to be coming through this area in August here in the Dallas area. So it's going to be Street Sex, Health, and Perturbator.
Even if you like punk and mainly punk and you just really like that kind of lo-fi aggressive type shit, even though it's electronic, Street Sex really does just fit that attitude.
Oh,
and it
God,
has that.
it's got such a... The energy is just so good with that band.
It really is. Even though it's electronic, the whole thing, it feels like it's sewn together with dental floss.
Yeah. That's a great way to put it. Well, that's our show. Stay tuned for part 2, possibly part 3 of the sumo and anime and manga series in the future, depending on when the Bansuke gets released for the upcoming Nagoya Basho. We might be doing that on the episode preceding this one, but we'll see. It might be another anime episode.
And you know what that means. It's time to listen to lots of Grand Sumo Breakdown.
Yeah.
And try to see whose predictions were right, who was dead wrong, who's going to get punished.
They're definitely better at sumo math than we are.
Yeah. Honestly, I like to listen to their sumo math and all of their number crunching because it helps some of my opinions make sense to me, but then it also helps me kind of be like, whatever, that opinion is dumb. So I don't know. I'm opinionated. Anyway, so we are Sumo Punx. Find us on social media, talk shit to us, tell us our opinions are asinine, or tell us that you love us.
Tell me I'm pretty.
And it's Punx with an X. We are also on Twitter at Punx Sumo, and you already know the story why.
Ooh, we have a Redbubble store now, too.
And we have a Redbubble store.
Which only has 2, which is technically 2 versions of one design up right now. But I am working on some more designs for that, so check it out.
There are some upcoming designs. We've been throwing some ideas at each other, and we have lots of really cool shit coming up on Redbubble, so keep an eye out on our social medias. Anyway, that's our show. We love you guys. We will see you next time, especially after the Banzuke comes out.
Yeah.
Bye.